What would you say are the standouts just in terms of the biggest battle scars that you've actually had in your career and made you best at?
What's the secrets in the Misguided world?
When you get told 127% growth isn't big enough, you're like, come
my
on.
How do we sort of combine that where it's fast fashion, but it's affordable?
I'm not sure there is a perfect equation for it.
Do you think being a contractor is also making people a better CMO and CEO?
I think if you've got an ego, you've probably got challenges anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
Mic drop.
Total mic drop.
So welcome back to another Digital Cheesecake podcast with myself, Ellie, Sarah, and the wonderful Victoria Woodman.
Hi.
Great to have you on. So Victoria is currently the CMO at Wourth Group.
Indeed.
And has previously worked as the e-commerce director over at Missguided. So appreciate you coming onto the podcast.
It's great to be here. Good to have a natter with you all.
But for those who don't know who you are, I was hoping you could just give us a quick whistle-stop tour of your background, your history to date.
Strictly professional?
Strictly
No.
unprofessional.
No, unprofessional.
A good mix.
I'll go
Unprofessional, please.
Okay, cool. So I've always classically worked in marketing in the retail space. Presently, I'm the CMO at Wourth Group, which is a newly formed group name. We have a series of businesses in the UK. We've got a footwear business called Hotter Shoes, clothing businesses called Woolovers Pure, and home businesses Scott's and Museum Selection. And I look after all of everything: customer, e-commerce, commercial, all of that kind of good stuff. But my history, I've done sort of 11 years stint at the Very Group, where I sort of cut my teeth on marketing, which is cool because they kind of pioneered what I think is modern day digital marketing, but they did it in an offline space. So all of the practices there, I think have sort of stood me in good stead. And then, as Jack said, I had my stint at Missguided, which is cool for a fast growing e-com pure play online retailer. And then I did about 7 or 8 years at Hotter Shoes, which incidentally is back in the group that I now work at. So kind of an incestuous little industry, I think, that we all
It sounds like it. In the fashion industry.
But I like that. So invariably I'm a very much a performance marketer. So sorry to the brandies out there. I'm
Oh my God, it's always like that, isn't it? Brand.
you
performance.
left
It's like,
right.
Yeah.
And I love it all, but I'm kind of a numbers girl.
Nice.
love it. Love that from you.
I can't colour in that well, which is the only reason I get to. Anyhow, so that's me.
And how's it been like going to these different businesses which tailor their product to different sort of generations and groups? Have you kind of differed and changed your approach from different businesses?
I think crucially, I'm obsessed with the customer, and I think every marketeer surely is, and if they're not, they need to be. So I think if you get wholly customer-centric and truly understand who he or she is and what their drivers are and what they need, then whether you're selling sort of cars or whether you're advertising holidays or whether you're doing something in sort of clothing, footwear, homeware, I think that customer connectivity is a thing that unifies the approach. I think interestingly in my current role at Wourth Group, we have a very clear demographic, and that's the mature market, and everyone's definition is different. But
What is the mature
That's a
market?
nice word to say, mature.
It's perhaps not us, no, in either age or attitude, but it's typically a 50 plus audience is what we're referring to, which
If we're not, what are we then if we're not mature?
well, I was going to sort of try and be cheeky and say that we're just fun and
Love that.
Fun and energetic.
Perfect good answer. Thank you,
I don't
Victoria.
really want to be mature. It's overrated.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
forget the age side of life. I think that, but coming back to where our audience is, being over 50, that combines them because invariably they're at a different life stage or there's different needs and wants. And I think that is something that, again, getting truly into the customer is what means that I can sort of flip in terms of what she wants, what he wants.
Perfect.
Nice.
And then being a performance marketer, is it just kind of the same old rules, same old playbook going from business to business, or do you have to change slightly in terms of what you're doing from a marketing perspective?
Definitely have to change. Notwithstanding that, I think that we all have our own styles and we all have our own approaches. And I'm not saying there's the Vicky Woodman playbook, but there are things that I know my style and approach I will explore the customer, the market, and then
I want to know it. Give us a slice.
I'm kind of like the 3 C's. So I'm like custom. I know.
It's
not as exciting as it sounds. So very much the customer, and who is the customer, the channels that you play in, because I think fundamentally managing and bringing together those routes to market with the customer, and then the category, I think that is important in as much as whether you're considering premium price points, your entry price point, you're diversifying in terms of a needs-based business or a wants and an irrational thing. And I think if you sort of truly understand the 3 C's, then the output will be the right one. I know that sounds a bit vague.
I love that.
That's
Uni,
kind of,
they taught me like the 4 Ps, but I'm in
Yeah.
Oh, I
4
know.
Ps, yeah.
But
What's the 4 Ps?
Stuff the 4 Ps. I reckon 3 Cs.
it's all about
It's like
Remember
product,
price.
price, place, promotion.
Right.
There you go. Yeah.
Sorry for anyone that's learning that right now, but just leave that class.
Oh God, you're taking me back to my sort of
I know.
early 20s. I was
Is
telling
that
Jack
old
before,
school,
I did
though?
my
It is a bit
postgrad
old school,
in
but
Manchester.
3 Cs is great.
Yeah, I like that.
Easy to remember.
It's my playbook, but I do adapt my approach. But that sort of is my general thinking to every part of my job, every different job I've worked in, every company I've worked in, and it kind of it works, hopefully.
I feel like I want to ask an uncomfortable question.
I think
Can
we
I?
should. I think it's time for an uncomfortable question. 4
I was
minutes in.
doing it. It's actually not even that uncomfortable, but obviously there's always some stuff around Misguided.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bet people are asking this question. I mean, what do you think in terms of the fast fashion world? You've changed. You've gone from like, okay, Missguided, then you've gone to actually shoes for, and they're doing clothing now as well, for mature, humans. I don't know what the word is, mature women and men. What's the secrets in the Misguided world? How did it, you were there when it actually grew, and now I think they've like sold to Shein or whatever. And so tell me, were you the main reason why they succeeded? And when you left?
Oh hell yeah!
Yeah, I love that.
If Knitting Passy's watching this now, I'm sorry. No, so I joined when it was already going through high growth. So it had been going for about 4 or 5 years. And when I joined, it was at the point where we wanted to globalise the brand. I did about 2 years there, worked directly for the owner, founder, CEO.
Nice.
And absolutely loved it because it was high energy, high growth, high pace.
Yeah.
On the other side, it was a bit thankless at times because, like, when you get told 127% growth isn't big enough, you're like, come on. But what was really brilliant is it knew its audience and it knew its brand identity, and it sort of played with that. It was quite irreverent and quite sort of provocative. We had a really kick-ass creative director in there who was just exceptional and did a really sort of fab job. Right. And I left just because it had changed and I had changed in terms of my needs. But I look back on that so fondly because it was such an accelerated learning for me. Clearly, it was in the sort of fast fashion boom.
Yeah. When there
yeah,
wasn't
there
as much
was.
hate. There was less hate. Everyone was like, la, 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 la.
We love it. Yeah.
And I do think the bubble has absolutely burst. And whether that contributed to, sadly, the demise of Missguided, and it's on the way back up, but you can see it in Boohoo, you can see it in...
I mean, Boohoo's like, it's struggle street.
I think that we as consumers have become more socially conscious and aware. And to that extent, whether it's sustainability, environmental savviness, something has changed. And I think we're much more quality conscious, environmentally conscious as consumers. And the fast fashion fickle frivolity maybe has lost its place. I don't think it will go, but I think
it will go,
it's also it's happened at a point when other brands have come to market who are really shit hot. They've got their USP sorted, whether it's, I really admire M&M. I think they're brilliant. You look at some of the stuff that some of those other guys who might be a bit more mid-market, whether it's Mint Velvet, even Next has evolved its proposition exponentially.
True,
with
I
their
think
launch
Next has done
of
an amazing
Yeah, they're
job.
doing well.
M&S, I used to think,
I know.
never gonna wear M&S.
I
And now
love
I'm
I
like,
M&S. I get all my polo shirts from M&S.
How good is that? I
It's
love
gone
it.
incredible.
It's really
They've
good.
done really well, especially on the food bit as well.
Oh God,
Food
don't
is
get me
amazing.
started on M&S
With-
food.
yeah.
That's my
Top
top
tier.
evening.
This is a very British chat, right?
I know.
I love it.
Yeah,
I
it
love
is.
But I don't think fast fashion has gone, but I don't think it will ever be what it was when I was last at Missguided, because there's too much competition, there's too much social savviness about other solutions, and realistically some of the stuff just frankly wasn't good enough from a quality perspective. And I think there's been a few times where some of the fast fashion players have been stung by their own goals with their own poor approach to supply chain. I think there's some things that fundamentally need to change. And interestingly, obviously it's ready new news this week. Boohoo have rebranded to Debenhams Group.
Yes, yeah.
Which is
What
kind of
does
cool.
that
Yeah.
mean?
But
I saw
what
that
does
today.
that mean?
What does that mean?
So if you read their press releases and what Dan Finley, their group CEO, said, it's really smart, and they're basically oriented to the fact that Debenhams is actually the crown jewels of the group. And
Interesting.
that was
Didn't know that.
bought
Yeah.
in or around 2020, I think. It was at some point during COVID. Has it finished? Who knows?
Yeah.
But Debenhams itself is doing really, really well. And what they've described is the change to the group is to acknowledge that we're much more about a marketplace, and they're trying to bring together a huge church of brands and products and services.
Yeah, I've seen
I
that.
think it's kind of also a little bit of a
Literally.
to the founders and not going to get involved.
I love
and
it.
the people who
Love
know it.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also, so I wanted to go back on the Misguided piece because years ago when I was really into it, like before I moved to London, I was like I remember I loved Misguided and we would send it to Australia, etc. What do you think happened actually from like those 10 years? What happened at Misguided? Because then Boohoo came in, Temu came in, like what happened?
I think there's two parts. One of it is what's going on outside. So absolutely, your Temus, your Sheins. I think the Chinese entrance into the UK market and European market is absolutely made everyone else had to sharpen their pencils and made everyone challenge where they're at.
Yep.
But equally, like with all businesses, you go through phases, and sadly, it would appear to me that Misguided got a few things wrong. I think one observation, just as I was exiting, is there was such a passion about growth at the expense of profit. And it's just, I've got this, I'm all about, I'm not acronyms, but I'm all about sales of vanity, margin is sanity, but profit is the hard-arsed reality of it all. And without that true profitability, where do you go? And what I read in the press about Misguided was that sadly their launch into retail and their growth with different ambassadors, they'd spent loads of money. And if you spend it and don't get it back, then we can all
I'm
see
loving
what
this
happens to the
tea.
bank balance.
Thank you for answering the question.
But I think
I've got the answer.
I love it. I've got it. So they launched.
They might disagree with me, but that is my humble opinion on what went wrong.
Fair enough.
I think
Love that, Victoria.
with the brands like Misguided, I think there will always be a market because price has got to come into it as well. If you're looking at the demographic, they can't always afford, all these kind of really, really expensive brands that are really sustainable and,
about Vinted.
Yes, that's true.
Pre-loved
but how
is
do,
really-
Pre-loved
how
I'm
do we
obsessed
sort of combine that where it's fast fashion, but it's affordable, but then we're also
And
being
quality.
sustainable and conscious?
I
I
just know that
mean,
you
do you
can't
think
do
we can ever get there?
I'm not sure there is a perfect equation for it, but I think the value piece is interesting because Primark, as an example, which leads the way in value, and then the supermarkets, they don't appeal to that younger, style-conscious audience.
Yeah.
So then you've almost got these, like, how do we blend together everything in terms of style and value? And I do think the likes of Missguided and Boohoo have done that for so long, but they're now not the only big players in town.
Yeah.
And so the competition is much more plentiful. There's loads of independent wholesalers. There's loads of startups. So I think you can get style at an affordable price without needing to maybe challenge your own morals.
Got you.
And interestingly, just to conclude from me on Misguided, we were selling into Australia when I was there. So why were you having to ship it yourself to your friends?
No,
Like, you could have just done that. It was about 10 Aussie dollars.
No,
to get
yeah,
it over
you were
there.
shipping it to Australia, and I was. I feel like at the time we thought that was expensive, the $10. I don't know why. Oh no, it took weeks. Oh yeah,
yeah,
Australia.
it
That
will-
is
it will
weird
have
to pay
taken-
$10. Actually, it is weird to pay like $10 for shipping.
Yeah, fair point.
That would be £5 for you guys, but for Aussies, come on, we need our money.
No, I get that.
Yeah.
Going from Misguided, actually, because this was something that we were talking about with your experience. How did you find the shift of kind of appealing to Gen Z, maybe Gen A we're on now, and then going to sort of Gen X, maybe Boomer?
Baby boomers wearing that.
Yeah.
How did you find that?
Definitely a change in pace and tempo.
Yeah.
In as much as the huge intensity and acceleration that was happening in Misguided hasn't necessarily been emulated in my other career recently. But then there's a different type of intensity, and that comes from an obsession over different elements of the P&L. It becomes an obsession over diversification. It becomes an obsession over what we're going to do with regards to our brand USP. So I think it's a different type of pressure and it's a different type of pace. So I think that's just something to consider.
Love a timer introduction.
Hopefully we can edit that out.
I think Katie said you've spoken for too long, Vix. Reined in.
Sounds like something was about to blow up. I was like, oh my god, let's get in the building. Sorry, keep going.
Well, we kept going anyway.
Yeah.
We're like, we can
prioritised you.
We're not going.
did well. Yeah.
But no, so the pace for certain when I was in fast fashion was adrenaline rush constantly.
Yeah.
But it was high risk, high profile,
love that.
high risk.
Yeah.
And it was very much, if something went well, everyone was dancing, everyone was celebrating. If something went bad, my God, you knew about it.
Right, okay.
And I
hate that
think
feeling
I'm
in
in a
marketing.
business now that suits my needs and the role I was in before now. I'm stressed at times. I'm pressured a lot.
Yeah.
But it's manageable and it's sensible and it's self-stress, if there's such a thing.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Whereas I think that imposition piece versus the creation, like I don't stop work ever. It's quite frustratingly tiresome because I love it. And I think where you've got a passion for something, that drives you and that keeps you motivated.
So you put that pressure on yourself.
Exactly.
Always in marketing, I feel.
To keep going.
I don't think marketing
Yeah.
ever sleeps. And then
Because you've got the results behind you. It's the hardest part, I think.
you then add marketing
You're
into
being
retail.
interviewed.
Sorry,
You're being interviewed.
no, please tell.
No. That's the case, right? You're just constantly seeing numbers every day. And so
Yeah.
you're like, oh God. And especially someone goes down, they look at you, right?
I think the role of a marketer, be it, head of marketing, manager, director, CMO, doesn't really matter. Increasingly, where the lines are becoming blurred between us and finance. And I
I
think
know, I love that topic.
Yeah.
I had that last time.
We love that.
Oh,
yeah,
Hang out with finance guys,
Exactly. Be
Used to-
there.
Have a beer.
have a beer.
Yeah.
I think
Cocktail.
we can sweet talk them.
I reckon you got to get them out of the suit.
Because we can prove, and I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
it's no longer that what does marketing do. It's actually really predictable, and I think
Agreed.
that is kind of cool, and that's what I love. But I think really effective CMOs, and I'm a averagely effective one. No, I'm all
You
right.
sound pretty good.
But the really effective ones are the ones that know all that but take that risk. And I think it's
Love
the
it.
how do you do it? And that's where I think the sort of brand and all the experiential and all the vision and the big thinking is probably what then you cannot ever quantify.
Not with the
That's-
finance team. They're
I
like,
never-
sorry, let's cut the bullshit. Sorry.
Oh,
Okay.
don't apologise.
And then they
for-
go, boom.
Yeah, they do. So,
I like it.
but no, I love marketing, and I just love that connection between consumers, products, and then embraced in the brand, because that's all we're trying to do at the end of the day. I do perversely enjoy it when I'm working in a highly desirable brand that's wholly irrational. So I don't need another blinking dress, but actually it's gorgeous and I've got to have it. And how do I cut through that through the sort of marketing mix, as opposed to, here's a loaf of bread. And I'm not disparaging to the supermarkets who do a fabulous job in marketing also, but I think I personally really enjoy when they don't need it, and so therefore you've got to tap into the psyche a little bit.
That psychology there as well.
Huge piece at play. How do we make them desire it, and then how do we make them justify that it's an acceptable?
Question on that.
Yeah.
So when you're going for a role, would you say you care what's more important to you, going more for the product and the brand, or choosing the founder?
That's a good question.
That's very
Good one. That's a really great one. So my current role is not owner founder managed.
Okay.
It's private equity invested, and so
it's
part of my
really
interview
relaxed.
process. Oh, Ted relaxed.
Super
Super
relaxed.
easy. They don't ask any questions. But it's kind of interesting. I think founders, if you're working in an owner founder business, that for me would be the most important criteria. Do you have synergy?
Yeah.
Do you have commonality of thinking? Do you seem to get on in those early stages? Because if any of those things are questionable, it's never going to work. Because ultimately the founder is the brand, whether their manifestation
Heartbeat.
is the product
Yeah.
or the ideation of it.
I've always said people. Like I've worked in
all
some
about
boring jobs. That sounds really bad, but I loved the people so much. Like the product sounded boring, and I said no to this one job. Sorry, rambling. But I said no, and then I met the people, and then it was my favorite job of all time.
Yeah.
So
Which one was that one?
agree. I'm not name dropping. I'm not, because it's my own company that I own right now. I mean, to be honest, it's one of my favorites. But yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not going to name drop. Screw you.
You're naughty.
But who
within,
knows?
within Wourth Group, some of our products, it does not appeal to me because
Yeah.
I'm not in that mature audience just yet. But notwithstanding that, I love it because it's what the consumer wants, and that's
Yeah.
all I
Yeah.
really care for. And the people that I work with to make that come to life is the most powerful part of it. So in choosing a job, I would go with, for me, the most important is probably your span of control and influence and capability.
Yeah, definitely.
Followed by the people that you'll be working with and
Nice.
for.
Agreed.
Whether you're selling X or Y doesn't really matter.
Great
Or
advice.
who you're targeting doesn't really matter.
What about, we haven't really talked about your career, but everyone loves hearing about careers on this podcast.
Oh, do they?
I don't know. Well, I mean, I obviously sneaky stalked your LinkedIn. So you had a bit of time where you did contracting, right?
Yes.
Do you think being a contractor is also making people a better CMO and CEO?
Absolutely, yes. I absolutely do. Categorically, I think that there's a risk if you stay in a business, even if you jump every 2 years from a different job, it undeniably become institutionalized. And I think even though marketeers do look outside and understand the market and the consumer, you care and obsess about that audience and that brand and that route to market. what I did when I went into consulting was almost unintentional rather than sort of, this is what I want to do. I was sort of trying a few jobs out, thinking what goes on. I did a little stint in automotive, never done that before. I did a teeny stint in healthcare. I did a small bit in an owner-founder business that was children's clothing. And all of them made me think differently. And I think that made me better because I was able to then reflect on what are the things. And I kept, it almost reminded myself that the 3 C's is what I've done in my career, but I hadn't really crystallized it as a thinking or as a Vic Woodman modus operandi, but it actually was really helpful. So I know there's an increasing presence and sort of use of fractional CMOs.
Yes.
And obviously you
That's
guys
the
know that.
buzzword.
It's the buzzword.
The buzzword, yeah.
But and however
Like 3
it works,
years,
it's. But I do think if somebody has got the experience in sector A, sector B, small company, big company, private equity founder, he or she has got a more rounded view. Now, you could become really specialist, and lots of people do that. They stick in one lane and they're blinking good at what they do. That's great, but I think it's restrictive for your career. I'd rather have that choice. And I, over time, have realised that I'm not a corporate player. I'm not good in the big businesses. I'm better in a fast-moving, small to medium-sized enterprise business. But I've loved the journey that Wourth Group's been on, where we've acquired a few more, because it's challenged me. It's given me something new. It's given me something different. I don't think I'd have realised it. I knew or liked that until I'd done a little bit of consulting and thought, well, that's a bit boring, or that doesn't float my boat. So I would encourage anyone not to jump ship and leave their jobs, but to give it a whirl.
Give it a go.
And to do something completely
There's
out
a lot of
what
new
you think's
businesses here.
right.
Yeah, I think they were saying the UK, it's like some of the, the biggest growth I've ever had in terms of like new businesses. So like working with founders.
Yeah.
Do you find that the hardest thing, and correct me if I'm wrong, the hardest thing is like, it could be your ego when you're being a contractor, like actually swallowing your pride a bit, that you're kind of like in the weeds and you're not really at that senior level, but sometimes you are. Like, what would you say is the most challenging part?
Just reflecting on that piece before I say the most challenging, I actually love getting down into the weeds, which is probably what makes me a challenging CMO.
That's a big one.
I sort of really love getting involved. So to actually have the capability as a contractor to sort of say, this is what I recommend and this is how I'm going to do it, or how I recommend you deliver against it, is really powerful.
Agreed.
I think, excuse me one sec. Oh, excuse me. So I think one of the challenges in terms of whether they are in that business and can you, as a contractor, is it the ego that's the challenge? I think it could be partially ego, but I think also it's the vulnerability that you feel. And that's my honest truth.
That's a good point.
I was like, how long am I going to be in this gig for?
Correct.
And without knowing it, there was that anxiety about paying my bills, being truly transparent, because I wasn't a seasoned contractor that went from job A to B, and I had a 3-month stint, and I, that was my rhythm. I didn't have that. So me, it was kind of, I'd do this until I delivered on a project, and then I picked up the next one. And it was like, oh God, I felt in a heightened state of stress all the time, but I don't think you need to be in that place. I think some people have made, whether it's fractional or consultancy, really, really effective. I can imagine for some people, ego can be a challenge because you're brought in and you leave. I think if you've got an ego, you've probably got challenges anyway.
Yeah.
Boom!
Mic drop.
Total mic drop.
I love that.
Talking about career then, like what would you say is kind of a big highlight in your career? If there was like a one standout or maybe a couple of standout?
I would actually, I'd use 2. So one of them is Misguided, despite the fact that it ended up where it ended up. And for me, that was because we grew so exponentially, but it was my first entrance into globalization. I'd only ever worked on UK-based businesses before. Brilliant. So they were already active in the US and Australia, and then we sort of did some more European stuff and we expanded into the other markets. So for me personally, that was a personal point of pride, and to see the international business flourish slightly disproportionate to the UK was kind of cool. I think the second one is probably during my tenure at Hotter Shoes, where I did 7 years from 16 to whatever that must be, 23, 4, and navigating COVID.
Oh gosh.
I know.
That
I mean,
word.
It's the second worst C word.
It is.
Oh, there's another C word. She's bringing the 4 C's.
Oh God, I am. I like some C words.
There could be more C's, but we don't want to be using those here.
That's the worst C word for me.
But COVID was bloody tough. And the business that I was in, we had half of our turnover generated through retail stores, and of course they all stopped. And we went through a really tricky time, and we went through a CVA, and what I'm really pleased about is the fact that we went through that, and I did so with dignity, respect, and true sort of empathy for the situation that the teams are undertaking. So it was really bloody hard.
Yeah.
And that business has come out better for it. And actually now we're opening more stores again. It's come back into the group.
That's such a good story.
So sadly, we closed it to about 25 stores, and we're now at sort of like 35 and counting and adding more in. So
amazing.
that for me, I think I helped steady the ship, and that's a real source of pride. But it was about treating people well in what was clearly an unnavigable, unprecedented, horrid situation.
Yeah.
That hopefully nothing of that type will repeat itself. But I personally know that I can sleep at night because I did the right thing.
Lots of leaders have battle scars, like leading
Yes,
a team or.
so true.
You better, or what are you doing?
I have it. I literally have it every week.
Yeah.
Is that just from Sarah?
No, it's amazing. It's mainly me creating my own problems. But,
Yeah, it sounds like you.
in terms of the major battle scars which made you a better leader, whether it's something that's happened in your team or some big moments, what would you say are the standouts just in terms of the biggest battle scars that you've actually had in your career and made you better?
So two. One would be navigating that COVID and that CVA, and ultimately the business a year or two after I left went through sort of a difficult time of administration, and the company I'm now in brought them back. So doing things that is new to you and unknown to you and scary to you is sort of, it helps you become better. It helps you be a better person and more rounded individual. I think the other example, it's not sort of a constructive example, but when I was at Very Group, I was on my upward trajectory. So I started as a marketing exec, project leader, whatever it was called, went to manager, head of, blah, blah, blah. And I ended up exiting as after about 11 years as a head of. But I was always striving and pushing and hungry for that next role.
Love that. Good on you.
And I was so ambitious, almost hell-bent at my own self-respect.
Yeah, okay.
And I was push, and the door sort of got closed. They were like, you're doing really bloody good, but like, enough now, love. You've
I've
reached
had
your
that.
ceiling.
I've had that. Yeah.
And that was
So that's what
really...
you said.
Stop annoying us.
Yeah.
Bring it down.
They were like,
Wow.
so I was
Okay.
basically told, you're great, but you have, you started here and you were a bit this and you were a bit that. You
Right.
just need to stop being so hungry, stop being so
Oh,
needy.
do you believe
What do you
that?
think?
Sorry, I don't agree with that.
Well, I kind of thought,
I've had that before.
what
I
a
said,
bunch of...
no.
Yeah.
However...
Is that why you left?
I left because I thought there is no
Yeah.
further opportunity for me.
Fair enough.
My growth was stunted. I'd done 11 years, but actually it did cause me to reflect. I thought, you're a bunch of... However, and I don't think many of the people that said it to me are still there, but I also was able to say, okay, well, let's have a moment of self-reflection. What do they truly mean by this? Okay. And I am who I am, and we all are who we
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
And, we know our strengths, we know our weaknesses, and I've tried to reduce my weaknesses, improve my weaknesses, but they're always there because that's me.
Yeah.
And I try to hone it, and I've got the emotional IQ to say, oh, that's my trigger. And I mostly capture it, but I'm not perfect.
Yeah.
And nobody is. And if they are, well, hats off to them. But I just don't feel like
That
people are
would scare me.
perfect because
Yeah.
we're real, we're humans,
Yeah.
we'll mess up, we'll get stuff
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah.
And I think what was really powerful about that feedback experience was I was trying to force something where there wasn't an opportunity or an opening. And instead of reflecting on, my gosh, you've actually achieved an awful lot so far.
It sounds like you outgrew the company or the role.
I think I probably did. And I think also they'd see me develop and flourish and get better at things.
That's
and
good.
so by default, that was a success. But also there's an element of, oh, do you remember when she used to do this? And, I'm hungry, I'm ambitious.
People don't like change or people
Yeah.
changing.
Oh, who are those
Like,
people?
true.
I don't know any of them.
They are
I want
not.
to
Delete it from my
I have
list.
so many questions, but I know I have so many questions. Okay, I know
I
we're
just
going to do
wanna
a
chat all day.
I know it'd be really fun. Do we need to do a 60-second Spitfire?
Yes.
Should we do a 60 seconds?
Yeah, I've got some questions too. Do you
wanna go-
I just made up some, but
Go with yours and then
okay. I'll do 4 questions. And you just need to go. Yes, you need to go with your answers.
Okay,
straight
okay.
away.
Right, I'm
Okay,
ready.
best marketing channel. Quick.
Paid social.
Okay. Best market to expand into. Country.
US. Huge.
I mean, Aussie. Geez. Tools to use, like number 1 tool you should always use in marketing.
GA. Obsessed
it.
with digital. Obsessed
Yeah.
with digital and customer research. But I was going to go GA
Yeah.
if I had to pick one.
What one would you bin? Waste of time.
Oh gosh, I'd love to bin stuff. Oh gosh,
I know, there's so much MarTech.
stuff. Oh God, no! What would I do? What would I do? Attribution.
Oh, fair. What about how much money have you overspent by?
I have never overspent my
No, rubbish.
No,
I've done it on a paid social campaign.
yeah, done it where you take your eye off the ball. So
Yeah.
I would say in or around sort of 20%. Which
Of what, like 100 million? What do you mean?
I've never come in where I've been diluting the profit too much, but there has been sort of leakage of a few 100,000.
Bit of leaky. Okay, that's fine. Nice. I
100,000
love that.
as
I
As
like
long as it's only a few hundred thousand.
Yeah, that's
Between
fine.
friends, I mean, literally, I would absolutely like panic strick if we like
Really?
I've wasted 100 quid at home, whereas 100
I know,
grand
it's like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, and what about the best like social event or something you've had at work before? Like you know, it could be with your team, you've taken them out for drinks, something awesome you've done.
I think when we went to Ibiza, because
Oh,
good
who
one.
doesn't love
yeah.
Ibiza? So we went and we were doing.
Did you see them? Like, did you fire them all after the trip? or-
Oh, absolutely not. I think they were like, well, we've got too much on her now.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Fair.
Got to stay.
But I think the more time you can spend with your team, whether it's local, it's quick, or it's something extravagant like Ibiza, do it.
Epic. All right, Jack, you're up.
Nice, love that.
So what's the most important trend in digital marketing right now?
Oh Christ, I don't know. What's the most important trend in digital marketing? Oh, I'm going to say full funnel. Everything's
funnel.
all about full funnel.
Yeah.
And what's the biggest challenge in digital marketing at the
Full
moment?
funnel. Clarity of measurement, because we
Clarity of
can all mark
measurement.
our own homework and blah.
How do you keep up with the ever-changing digital landscape?
Don't sleep as much. Read a
Nice.
lot.
Yeah.
Listen to other people. Watch cool as fuck podcasts like this.
Thank you.
Nice. Digital cheesecake. Oh, you-
Follow.
everyone-
Make sure you follow. Make sure you follow.
Influencer marketing, hit or miss?
Hit.
Hit.
Come on, she's in retail.
What's the most underrated marketing channel?
Direct marketing. Catalog paper.
Whoa,
That is
that
coming
is
out the
whoa.
Classic old fashioned, but it blinking works.
And then last one, do you secretly stalk your competitors' ads to see if they're better than yours?
Oh, well, I secretly stalk them. I think I can only control if mine's better than theirs. I can't control
Yeah.
if theirs better than mine. So I stalk them so I can understand what they're doing, because you've got to understand what else is out there, who you're competing against. Do I think they're better than mine?
No.
It's my job to make mine as best as they can be.
Yeah.
Love
So
it.
I can only influence what I can influence.
Love that.
Yes.
Thanks a lot for being on the podcast,
That was
Vicky.
awesome. Thank you for having me,
Yeah,
my
no
love.
worries.
This is so nice.
Good, love that.